Welcome back. This is our pleasure to close out our first virtual USC Institute for Integrative Health and Wellness conference. And we are so appreciative of people joining us today. We've had unbelievable speakers. We've gotten incredible feedback. People have learned, shared, have been enlightened, have had some good times learning how to cook some new meals in a virtual cooking class. I think the poster session went really well. The exhibitors had a very good experience. I'm hoping that everybody who has remained here until the end has had a really excellent experience, and that we've come closer together as a community. And as I've mentioned to my colleagues, this is just a springboard for future events. This is not a once a year event. Our goal is to do this more routinely, to come together and to have smaller working groups and smaller sort of quarterly conferences so that we can share ideas, we can create new programs, we could investigate new research, but to do that collectively, collaboratively, to take many points of view, to circle around one another and our wellness and improve that as a collective community and not alone. I think far too long have people worked independently in what we term silos, alone. And this institute is all about gathering the wagons, coming together, working together, in nature, in industry, in academics. And I really feel that pulse today. Even though we've been doing this virtually, I feel a sense of connection to our shared communities. And so I'll just do a couple of house cleaning things, and then I'll be happy to pass it over to Miguel. Um, After our closing ceremony with Miguel, we're going to probably have a little bit of a break, stretch your legs and whatnot. And for those of you who have signed up for the virtual wine tasting, you will have your information to do that. If you've signed up for the certified mixology class, you can still, I don't know if you still can purchase that, but if you have, you will be logging into that. You should have that material either in your email or on the site. Please, anybody licensed who wanted to get their continuing education, please follow all the instructions with EADS to make that happen. If you're having any problems, you just need to let us know and we will fix that for you. And as I said, please stay connected to our website, our USC IIHW website, so that you can hear about coming events and working groups and meeting places and activities that are going to be really kind of cornerstone to the work that we're doing moving forward. So I just want to say thank you again for joining us on Saturday, your weekend, to spend time in front of a computer yet again, like you have been probably many days for the last 8 months. And I want to say, I look forward to seeing you again soon, either virtually or in the flesh. And I hope that you have a very peaceful evening and see you again soon. I'm passing you over to Miguel, who is going to give us our closing ceremony on this conference. And I look forward to participating in that as well. So heal on and off to Miguel.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, Dr. Gold. Much appreciated being invited here to share some stories with you. And what I wanted to do is acknowledge how we started this morning with the beautiful prayer and intention set by Toby and Dr. Mark. And also the speeches by Dr. Chopra and Dr. Miller, right? And everybody that contributed this morning. And what we realize is that there's a tremendously diverse field. Not everybody has the answer at any given point in time because we're such complex beings, also live in a complex world. But everything that we are is not just the humans, right? We have to recognize all the other species as well, all the other beings, sentient and non-sentient, that occupy this place, being in relationship to the world of the universe that we inhabit. So this is a part of this. So what I'm going to do is tell you a couple of stories, and then we are going to do a closing ceremony or ritual, however you like to define it. And there's been a lot of semantic arguing about whether it's a ritual or a ceremony. And My teachers always used to call them ceremonies, so that's what I'm going to call them. Or however semantically you feel inclined to call this process, the whole idea, as anyway, is to invite you to participate. One of my teachers used to say, "No spectators." So come and participate in your own way, shape, or form. I'm gonna try to make it as easy as possible for you to do so. But I'm not only going to invite you. I'm going to invite you or your ancestors, right? The people whose lineage you are now in line with, and also your descendants at the same time, right? It's really important to think about that. In Years ago, I got in trouble in a difficult situation. I will not give you the details, but I had to call a lawyer friend of mine to see how to deal with all this. And he called me back a couple of weeks later, and he goes, "We can do something that's called nunc pro tunc." And I said, "What is that?" And he said, it's a Latin term which means now for then. So the whole idea about this is really when our ancestors came together, they did not know how to get along with each other, right? There was a lot of enmity, a lot of crazy stuff went on between our ancestors. So many of us have that ancestry inside of us, right? So the prayer goes, or the intention of this is going to work its way backwards and way forwards. So our ancestors get taken care of and our descendants get taken care of again, so that this craziness that we live in now does not get passed on anymore, right? The whole idea is to set up a line of inquiry, a line of relationship that allows us to know each other, know what kind of medicine we carry, right? So this exercise or this ceremony, this ritual that we will do in a moment or so, will allow us to invite that process to begin or to be explored deeper, whichever way you looked at it. And I want to start with a medicine man that I was able to know years ago. His name was Raymond Stone. He was a Paiute, lived up in northern central California. And the Paiutes were desert people, right? Desert and mountain people. But he was talking about how they knew that their culture was going to be intrinsically shaped by the coming together of the arrival of the Europeans here. And so it challenged in many, many different ways. I won't give you the whole story, but one of the things that I learned from sitting with Raymond in a sweat lodge is this. He said, everything that we are, and he was talking about the Paiutes in particular, he said, everything that we are comes from the land. If we ever lose it, we go back to the land and the land will tell us. He was a lot more explicit in the information that how he told the story. He said our clothes, the way we make pottery, the way we hunt, the way we tell stories. He went through everything that they do. He said it all comes from the land. That memory is there. If we ever lose it, we go back to the land, and the land will tell us. Right? That's important to know that. So this is one of the things that we're doing now. We are going back to the land, and the land will tell us. Years ago, I was at a funeral. One of my aunts, my mother's younger sister, died, and she was being lowered. Right, she was in her body had been involved in a metal casket. Right, like this is so wrong. Yeah, this is so wrong. So what's really important is for us to figure out how we are going to participate with nature, with the world around us. How are we going to participate? One of the things that I've learned over the years is that we have taken ourselves out of the food chain. We don't want to participate with the world. We don't want to participate with the universe that way. Somehow we seem to think that humans are above the food chain, and we're not. So this is really important. And so one of the things that people talk about is death, right? Denial of death. But what's important is the cycle of life. Like death is not the opposite of life. No, birth is the opposite of death. Together, birth and death make the cycle of life. How are we going to participate with the cycles of life? We have ancestries that are technically, right, or historically at odds with each other, right? And we have those inside of us. Years ago, one of my teachers was talking about medicines, medications. People take three or four or five or six different medications. And he was saying all those medications get in there and start arguing with each other. What are you doing here? No, this is my disease. No, I'm supposed to do that. And so the medicines fight with each other that way. And so the patient or the whoever's being worked on is like, what the hell happened? Because the medicines are arguing with each other. I took it a step further and I realized what if our ancestries are that way inside of us? You know, this is my body. No, this is my body. I'm older than you are. Blah, blah, blah. And what you realize is the ancestries have to learn how to get along with each other. It's retroactive, right? Nunc pro tunc. Now for then. Now, if what couldn't be done then is going to be done now. Why that works is I was invited to Sundance many years ago. I was invited to participate in many Native American rituals, you know. And in one of the Sundances that I was asked to participate, the intercessor said this to us. He says, your people, meaning the Europeans that came over, could not do this when they first came over 500 years ago. On their behalf, you're doing it now. The significance of that, you have to think about it. It took me years to figure it out. You know, inside of me, I have mixed ancestries. I have 3 or 4 different or more mixed ancestries: Spanish, Maya, you know, Polish, and Arab for that matter, and Jewish, or whatever that is, whatever the amalgamation that became Spain over the centuries. You know, that's all in me. So I have that in me arguing with other ancestries, you know, how we're going to bring dialogue with these ancestries together. Many of us are in the same position, right? How are we going to reconcile these ancestries that have enmity between the two of them? When you look at the colors that get assigned to the medicine wheel in Native American, the colors are all there. That means everybody has a place. One of the stories that was told to us is Black Elk's vision, right? One of my interpretations of Black Elk's vision is this: horses. There's a field with a dead tree in the middle, and horses start to appear. Red horses come in from the north, you know, black horses from the west, white horses from the south, yellow horses from the east, you know, blue horses come down from the skies, green horses emerge from the earth. What are you doing here? This is my field. No, it's my field. Rah, 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 all that whole thing. You know how horses are with each other, right? I was here first. No, I was here first. Nah, this is my tree. No, my, you know, only horses do that, right? Anyway, at the end, you know, they all figured out that nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's going to go anywhere. So they start prancing the way horses are, you know, kicking, neighing, making noise. What are you trying to scare the others away? Nonetheless, the horses all stay in the field. Eventually, as horses do, they start to prance. And as they start to prance and neigh and do all these things the horses do, they start to move. And as they start to move, they start to go around the tree in their own separate colors, once in a while biting and kicking and yelling at other horses, right? What are you doing here? Ah, I thought you'd leave by now. No. Anyway, the horses keep going around the tree. Who knows for how long it was? Days, nights, weeks, months. But they keep going around the tree and going around the tree. As they keep going around the tree, the whole circumstance becomes reverential. And then as it becomes reverential, prayerful, mindful, right? Eventually they start to intermingle with each other, little by little. Red horses mix in with the black horses, with the yellow horses, with the blue horses, with the white horses, you know. And as this starts to happen, it becomes a prayer, it becomes a dance. And as this happens, the tree comes back to life. The tree comes back to life. So what's really important to recognize here is the universe has its own way of doing things. And we are about witnesses about how the universe does its things. So we have to learn how to participate with the universe instead of excluding ourselves from the universe. We are not above the food chain, to use that very coarse term. We have to learn how to participate with it. I have a lot of stories about participating in the food chain, but one year I was tasked with going to for pick sage, right, for one of the ceremonies that I was participating in. And so the task was to talk to the plants, talk to the plants. So we went over to found this patch of sage. This is in Colorado, right? And when I explained to the plants what I was doing, right, I could hear back, I want to go. I want to go. Take me. I want to go. And I was totally amazed by that, you know. Someday I want to be food for plants, you know. And that's how, when we learn how to talk to plants, this is what we do. So thinking about these things, you know, we are not the only beings on this world and this universe that count. They all do. All the animals, all the plants, everything, elementals, all are part of the wheel that are part of the food chain, right? We're all reciprocity. They're saying reciprocity begins at home, reciprocity with the world, reciprocity with each other. This is one of the teachings of 40 plus years of doing this work on a very deep level. But the whole idea is to create relationship. You hear this all the time. We are all related, but it means a lot of different things. And it's not just the humans. It's all the other beings that live in this planet, in this world, in this universe, right? So I want everybody to just take a moment, take deep breath, relax yourself, and we're going to do a little visualization and we're going to end up with a prayer. But close your eyes if you can, right? And imagine a field. Imagine a field with a tree in the middle of it, right? Whatever that tree looks like, whether it's a pine tree, a baobab, right? However that tree looks like. Oak, willow, whatever that tree may be, redwood, sequoia. And see yourself coming into that field from whatever direction you want to be in, whether it's the west or the north, the east or the south, whatever that field might be, what that looked like, right? Find your place, walk around, wherever that may be, north, south, east, west, or in between, somewhere in between. When you find yourself there, okay, invite your ancestors to come, wherever they came from, whatever part of the world they came from, Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America. What if you're mixed? What do you have all that? Invite them all to stand there with you, in front of you. They opened up the way for you to be here today, so they always belong in front. Also, if you have descendants, bring them along with too. Bring your descendants with you, right? In your place in the field. Sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, right? Grandchildren, if you have them, invite them to come too. And as you feel them all there with you, start to see around the field all the other relatives that are there, right? What do you see there? People of different colors, right? Wearing different clothes, different color skin, speak different languages, eat exotic foods, but you're curious about them. Now, it doesn't have to be antagonistical, but more with curiosity. We all belong in this field. Remember where you came in on this field, right? Remember where you came in on this field. Imagine being in the exact opposite side of this field. What would that be like if you were looking at yourself from the exact opposite side of the field? Right? Looking at yourself from the exact opposite side of the field through the eyes of another family of beings, different colors, skin, different color eyes, different color hair, wearing different clothes, wearing different language. What would that look like to be seen through the eyes of a very exotic looking human being in this field, right? Just like the ponies in the field that I talked about earlier. But in this field, there are not only also humans, there are other beings in here too, right? Whatever they may be, feel that. Feel that connection to all these beings. And like the story of the ponies before you, start walking around the field. Get to know each other a little bit. Look at the clothes that some of the other relatives are wearing. Color of their eyes, color of their hair. What does their language sound like? What stories do they carry? What kind of foods do they eat? How do they cook them? What do they get out of the ground? How do they hunt? How do they grow their food? Is it warm where they live? Is it cold all year round? What is it like? Imagine that. This is one amazing family now. These are all your relatives. And there are other species here too. Imagine that. Interesting when you look at it this way. It's all part of the cycles of life. No one above, no one below, but all in the same playing field. Just like the story of the horses. In the beginning, antagonistical, suspicious. But now, when you realize, oh, this is a whole different relationship. This is what this is the task we have to embark upon. We are not alone. We are not alone. We have invited ancestry here from many different places in the world. Traditionally, ancestry is very suspicious of the other ancestries involved. We've been taught for many, many centuries that we are the only ones that have dominion. All the other ones don't count. But I think that is incorrect information that we have to unplug from. The stories, some of the stories that have been handed down for a while don't work anymore. So we have to change those. And like my friend Raymond Stone said, if we lose it, we go back to the earth and the earth will tell us. And this is what we are doing now. We are returning back to the earth so that we can get informed by the earth that we live in. What do we do now? We have to sit and wait. One of my friends used to say, expectation is premeditated resentment. So what are our expectations? What do we have to look at? All right. What is our belief structure or our defense structure, if you want to look at it that way? How inclusive is it? And these are the things that I've been thinking about, that we've been thinking about for a long time. We are concerned. We are all healers here. We have come to heal not only ourselves, but the place that we live in. Thinking about our descendants, we also have to think about our ancestors, right? The prayer is reciprocal. It works both ways. It works both ways. We're here in the middle, right? Somebody said earlier today, forget about yesterday, don't think about tomorrow, be here present. But we have to think links and linking ourselves to that story that we live. What kind of story have we been handed down? And it's time to think it over, to rethink that story. How are we going to do it? A lot of traditions were shared with us here today. So as you walk around in this field, remember that. Traditions that came from Africa, Asia, North and South America, all Polynesian traditions. Everything was inclusive today in many different ways, all related to how to make ourselves function and be in relationship to everything. It's really important. There is no us and them. It is all us. That's what's really important to think about that. There is no us and them. It is all us. That's one of the profound medicine teachings that I've learned. There is no us and them. And how do we live that out? Especially when you think about the narratives that we've inherited that have created so much us and them, or us versus them. Right? We're living it now in this country at this moment. So let us think about that. Embracing the full responsibility of what it is to be cognizant of that. There is no us and them. It is all us. We have to go through layers of anger, layers of pain, layers of fear to reclaim, to re-sanctify the core of our beings. Re-sanctification of the core of the being. What does that mean? If there's been a compromise from the get-go, if we have inherited a compromise from the get-go, what would that look like? And how can we change that? As you walk around this field, recognize your relatives now. We are all related in some form, A dear, dear friend of mine told me this, shared a poem with me a long time ago. His name is Humberto Acabal, Maya Quiche poet. And he said this: roots tell us through the flowers what the earth is like on the inside. Roots tell us through the flowers what the earth is like on the inside. Right? Spirit, essence, tells us through the flowers what we are like on the inside. So if you can imagine having your own distinct, unique connection to source, to spirit, uncompromised by an ism, right? Any kind of an ism, right? But just pure relationship. What would you look like if you were that flower, right? Uncompromised through your root to source. Imagine that. What would that feel like? Everything that has been shared today, we are grateful for. These are all aspects. Remember how you saw your relatives across the field, right? Even though they had different color skin, different clothes, spoke different languages, they're still your relative. They're still in the same field. Just like I told the story of the ponies, right? Red ponies, white ponies, black ponies, blue ponies, green ponies. You're still ponies in the field, right? Now you've learned how to play with each other. What does that look like? Interacting instead of reacting to each other, right? Trading stories, trading recipes, all those things. That's really important. And this is what we've come here to learn to do with each other. How to trade stories, how to trade recipes, and these things with these elements around us, all part of the family, all part of the family. Rooted, 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 right? Roots tell us through the flowers what the earth is like on the inside. In the words of Umberto Acabal, from another poem, love with all of the power of the earth until you burst into flower. That's how the roots love. They love with all of the power of the earth until they burst into flower. So part of our task here today is to love that way. You know, Dr. Chopra alluded to that this morning when they spoke this about love, you know, reclaiming this essence of who we are as individuals, who's been that have been, and that essence in many ways has been compromised in many different ways, through the stories that we have inherited. And it is time to change that narrative, right? Through a relationship to the earth. In that field with all these different colored ponies, right? Now the blue ponies are not so scary. The green ponies are not so scary, right? They're kind of like your friends, They kind of do the same thing you do. They just have a different color. And this is what we are doing now, changing the narrative a little bit, changing the narrative, the scripts, as they say, changing the scripts for the culture, but bringing blessing, right? Bringing blessing in some form or another. Acknowledging the fact that we are all humans in a much, much larger community of beings, right? We are not the only ones that count. In geology, right, one of the things that marks the end of one geological period is a mass extinction, right? There have been many mass extinctions at the end of each of the major geological eras. There have been a mass extinction. Anywhere from 30 to 97% of all life forms perish, right? But the world, the universe is incredibly beautiful and vital. Look how it reimagines itself. Comes back to life again with a certain level of potency. So our job is to tap into that regenerative quality that the universe has so that we can plug into that. How to participate in the chain of life, how to participate in the food chain. One of the big deals, one of the big dilemmas that we have is we have taken ourselves out of those cycles of life. We have taken ourselves out of the food chain. To go back to that story that I talked about my aunt being buried. It's so against my nature. When I die, I want to be buried somewhere, right, where plants can eat me. I was doing a memorial service for a dear, dear friend of mine. And in her ashes, she wanted her ashes buried in the middle of her yard. It was all surrounded by flowering shrubs, trees, and plants, all kinds of flowers. And she wanted all the plants in that yard to be eating of her ashes so that when they would flower, her husband who survived her, would always think about her when he saw those flowers. That's participating in the cycles of life. Let us learn through our own ways how we can participate with the cycles of life. Still in this field here, in this field of human beings. Yeah. So I want to thank all the lineages that were represented here today. Everything that came from different continents, different parts of the world. Wisdom was brought here today for us so we can begin. As Dr. Jeffrey Gold said very eloquently earlier, this is only the beginning of a new way of looking at things, how to integrate all these different aspects. Learning how to talk to each other is the most important one. Probably how to listen to each other. Right? We are not the other. It is all us. There is no us and them. It is all us. And this is one of the things that we have to learn. 40 years of doing native ceremony, this is what I have learned. There is no us and them. It is all us. All right? And this is what we're learning here today as we're still in this field. So I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to close because I don't want to bore you with too much blah, blah, blah anymore, But what's really important is I want to acknowledge the blessing and all the information that was brought here today that will allow us to recalibrate. There's an anonymous quote that I love, and I don't know who said it, but it's this: God will forgive you for your sins by your nervous system one. So here we are recalibrating our nervous systems because we're out of whack with the planet that we live on, the universe that we inhabit. And part of the task today was to recalibrate our nervous systems on many, many ways, many different levels. Through all the various stories and disciplines that were shared with us here today, there's ways for all of us. Non-competitive, but relational. Right? One more short story. When I was getting ready to Sundance one year, I told this earlier, but I'll repeat it here again. We finished building the arbor and we stood on the west gate looking east. 15, 20 minutes, and our leader, our intercessor said, walk around with me. We went to the exact opposite side of the arbor. And we were looking west from the east side. 15, 20 minutes go by, and all he said was this same arbor. Right? So it takes a while to unravel what that means, but it's deep understanding. And this is what we're doing here today. Learning how to be in the same field with each other, in opposite sides of the field, and learning how to relate. If the earth didn't turn, right, one side would be completely charred, one side would be completely frozen. And this is what we're doing here today, creating relationship with these aspects that are polarized, not in the culture and inside of ourselves. Joseph Campbell brilliantly put it in the beginning, in one of the introductions to his book written in the 1930s. He's talking about going internally, right? And one of the first things that you find when you go inside are all the monsters that are hiding underneath the bed. And this is what we have to uncouple from, right? The biography that compromises us. How are we compromised by the stories that we live in, right? How to re-sanctify the core of our beings through our actions. Re-sanctification of the core. How to get coherency. And this is all on the way to doing that. By re-sanctifying our cores, we can sanctify the culture. And until we reclaim that, right, we're going to be in repeating the same things over and over again, right? So let us re-sanctify our core. And however, uncoupling from those stories, right, is brilliantly stated in many, many different ways. But here we are trying to uncouple from those stories that have shaped us, right? Bringing closure to these events, cultural, historical, and personal, that have created wounding deep inside of us, right? A culture that has substituted wounding for cooking will suffer. And this is a really important thing to consider, especially if we are all healers here. We're really considering the well-being not only of ourselves, but of our species in relationship to other species. It's really important. So we have to learn how to uncouple from that. Wounding will never replace cooking, right? Preparation takes a long time to get to that place. And this is what we are learning how to do, how to uncouple from these patterns. So I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank your ancestors for having brought you here today. And I want to thank your descendants for receiving the blessing because of your participation here today in this willing participation. You have undertaken the burden of your generation, right? By coming here today, and you will not pass it on. You will not defer it to future generations. This is really important. This is what I learned from years and years of sun dancing and participating in native ceremonies. We will embrace our own responsibilities and not defer them to the incoming generations. So we're going to send those ancestors home now to wherever they come from in this universe, right? And we're going to put praise and blessing to our descendants and to ourselves for having had the courage to come and participate in this workshop. And I want to say thank you to all those that invited me, in particular Dr. Mark and Toby, right? And Jeffrey Gold, thank you so much for allowing me to share these thoughts and ideas with you. What I share with you is not intended to replace or to conflict with what you know, but to complement it, to give it a new. So think about it. If you have questions, please get a hold of me afterwards. The organizers will know how to do that if there's more in depth. I know time is at a crunch here, but I want to bring blessing to you, to your homes, to your ancestors, and to your descendants in this way, all right? So I'm going to send the spirits home, the ancestors that were invoked here today in all the disciplines, and thank them for having come and blessed us in this way. And also going to pray for you and your descendants through this too. Right? This is a song that was taught to me by my friend Humberto Acabal, the poet that I mentioned earlier, that's intended to take all the grief in your bones and put it back in the earth. And with that, we're going to send everybody home. So I'm going to sing it 4 times. And then I want to say to you, actually, I'm going to share with you one of his poems before I sing you out. And he said this, the answer: to open up the earth with your hands and get filled with its scent. Raise your face to the sky and eat the wind. That is peace, the grandmother said. La respuesta: abrir la tierra con las manos y llenarse con su aroma. Levantar la cara al cielo y comer el viento. Eso es la paz, contestó la abuela. The answer: open up the earth with your hands. Get filled with its scent. Raise your face to the sky and eat the wind. That is peace, the grandmother answered. So thanking all our ancestors that came here today, right? All the lineages of this world, of this earth that were invited here today. We're going to thank them and send them home with this song. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, ah, ah. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah, oh, ma, oh, ma, oh, ma. Ah. Breathe deep and take a good look all the way around you and practice gratitude. Thank you all so much for being able to share this time with you. And I thank you for having me here with you today. In peace.